Big changes happening over here at Renegade. I know many of you have been following our journey, and with more than 400 graduates across 15 countries, we have learned a thing or two, and we are listening loudly. As we've grown, expanded, and evolved, what we've learned is that this container, this curriculum and content, the community and collaboration and the accountability, it's much bigger than an 8-week intensive accelerator. So we are now an annual experience. It's ongoing, and you don't have to wait until spring or fall to join us. We are accepting applications and nominations right now. And we're enrolling and onboarding new women every single week. We are enrolling female leaders, executives, and founders from all over, across all different industries. We are industry agnostic intentionally, and these are like-minded, like-hearted women who are fiercely loyal to each other's results and success. So you can get an unfair advantage to 2023 and get a jump start now. You can learn more at renegade.global. We'd love to explore this with you. Just apply today, and we'll be in touch.
The very first thing I want to mention here is highly charismatic people are congruent. They don't turn it up or turn it on to be fake. They don't fake it till they make it. They find a way to hit their flavor of charisma that is sustainable and feels natural to them, so they can do it when they're in a one-on-one, when they're with their partner, when they're with their kid, and when they're on a stage.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
We have Vanessa Van Edwards on the show today. She is a behavioral investigator, and she focuses on the science of people. Now, Vanessa is a friend, and I've been fortunate to get to hang out with her and learn from her, but I'm learning in real time because she's constantly studying my cues. And what do I mean by cues? I mean the signs that I'm sending to the world, right? So Vanessa has a new book out called Cues, and it guides you on mastering the secret language of charismatic communication. So in this episode, we get into the specifics. And charisma is actually something that we talk about as well. Do you think you're born with it? Or can you learn? Can you train to become charismatic? Well, you have to listen and find out. You might be surprised. Vanessa also talks about her year of no, where she vowed to say no to every new opportunity that wasn't directly in line with her goals. We talk through how she said no, how she evaluated the various opportunities and options, and how it's going. This episode is jam-packed with tangible takeaways that I've started using. So make sure you check out her new book, Cues, as well. And without further ado, here is Vanessa. Vanessa, my friend, welcome to the Why Not Now show. I am so excited to have you here.
I am so honored to be here. I wish we could hug and cheek kiss and cuddle through the screen. This is enough.
We're going on a walk soon, so we'll do it then. In the spirit of Why Not Now, Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you asked the question, why not now?
Oh, yes. So I like to joke that I'm a recovering awkward person. And that is because growing up, I had all kinds of social anxiety and tics. Like I have this problem that when I hiccup when I'm around cool people. So I had all these kind of social anxiety issues. And so I would read all these books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and all these communication skills books. And I had a moment where I had like a stack of them by my bedside table. And every single book made me feel like I couldn't be myself. And I realized it was because a lot of the books were written by extroverts. When I looked at all of these books, it was a lot of extroverts. I am not an extrovert. I'm an ambivert. So I'm somewhere in between the extrovert introvert spectrum. And so I realized a lot of the books were gently and helpfully trying to just encourage me to fake being an extrovert. That was sort of what they wanted me to do. And so I thought to myself, what would it look like to try to tackle this as an ambivert? What would it look like to try to think about being more confident and processing social information, reading people as an ambivert, as an introvert, as an awkward person? And I thought, I'm not qualified. Who am I to do that? And I thought, well, why not now? Like, why not just try it? That idea, and it started off as a very small little blog where I was publishing my social tips and tricks, which I thought 10 people were reading, and who knew that there was lots of recovering awkward people in the world. And I remember one of the first big posts I wrote was about how to try to overcome awkward small talk, because small talk was one of my traps where we would start to have an awkward silence and I would like feel my heart beat, and then I would get even more awkward and there would be even more silence. And it would devolve into a terrible conversation. So I wrote this post about how do we overcome those awkward gaps? And like 60 people read it. And then I was like refreshing, and like 600 people read it. And I was refreshing. And then like 6,000 people read it. And a week later, like 6 million people had read this article. And I thought, maybe I'm not alone. Like maybe it's not just me in a conversation who's worried about being awkward. Maybe everyone is worried about being awkward. And that was like the light bulb moment.
Isn't that, and I want to kind of go back to those early days in just a second, but bookmarking this notion of awkward. If you are thinking to yourself, I'm not awkward, you might be even more than everyone else, right? So like the self claim and discovery of awkwardness.
Awkward like masquerades as other things. So awkward is a great cross-dresser. So awkward can dress up as fear. Awkward can dress up as criticizing. Awkward can dress up as mean. Awkward can dress up as passive aggressive. And so I think what I didn't realize is when we have a moment of awkwardness, that could be, I don't feel like myself. I don't like myself. I don't like them. My boundaries are being pushed. I'm people pleasing. Any of those things, we all choose to react to that awkwardness differently. For me, I shut down. I get really awkward. I turn inward. For other people, it's lashing out or attacking or being aggressive. And so I think I didn't realize that so many people can resonate with that, even though it shows up differently.
Yeah, I would say self-criticize and I'm not good enough starts to happen in the self-talk for me when I'm feeling awkward and everybody else knows something I don't and blah, blah, blah. You have such a gift, Vanessa, for articulating things that just haven't been smoothly and easily articulated before. And I'm so excited to get into Cues, your new book, which is out March 5th. But before we do, I have to kind of share with the audience. So we went on this like friend date, right, to San Diego in December. And it was so funny because I wouldn't say that we knew each other super well at the time, but we knew we would probably click. We like some solo time when we travel. We like to go deep fast, do a lot of walking. When we say deep fast, we mean zero small talk. I'm allergic.
I'm allergic. We can't do it. No small talk for us.
Life's too short. It really is too short. So that trip, really, I got to know you a lot better, and you have this charisma. And my question for you, have you learned or is it innate? And let's start with charisma because I have a bunch of other questions for you.
Okay, so charisma. I had this myth, this giant myth about charisma that you had to be born with it. I was certain when I was the uncool kid in the cafeteria, looking over at the cool kids who just glowed, they just glowed. I don't know. I was like, they're born with it. There's nothing I can do about it. And then once I started looking into the research behind social behavior, which was my backdoor into social information, I discovered no, charisma can be learned. In fact, when we look at the research, about 30% of leaders or very highly charismatic people are born with it, that they are just kind of from birth, they like to have this ability. But 70% comes from our environment, that we can cultivate it or create it. And what's key here is that charisma comes in different flavors. There is another big myth that we have to bust, which is to be charismatic, you have to be the life of the party. You have to be the bubbly, happy, peppy extrovert. And that is one flavor of charisma. What I didn't realize is that there are actually multiple flavors. There's the quiet, contemplative, powerful introvert. That's charismatic. There's the compassionate, empathic healer. That's charismatic. And so once I started to realize that, I thought, okay, I need to find my own flavor. And I also want to help other people find theirs. And here's what the research says. The only thing that differentiates highly charismatic people from quote unquote non-charismatic people is that highly charismatic people rank off the charts in two traits. They rank off the charts in warmth and competence. Warmth and competence are actually the critical building blocks of our interpersonal relationships. So warmth is likability, trust, and openness. Competence, capability, getting things done, effectiveness. Highly charismatic people are constantly broadcasting cues and signals of, I'm trustworthy and I'm capable. You can like me, you can also rely on me. I can get stuff done, but I'm also super collaborative. The problem arises, and this was my problem, is when we have an imbalance. Most of us have an imbalance. Most of us are too high in warmth or too high in competence. This is a really important thing for my very smart people. And I have a feeling that people listening to this podcast are highly intelligent. You have had massive and wild success. You are brilliant. You are talented. Sometimes that can get in your way because it means you have an imbalance of so much competence, but not enough of the warmth. And so what happens is people who are too high in competence, they're told they're cold, intimidating, hard to talk to. They are get it done, but they're not invited. They're not included. You also have people, and this is my people pleasers. So my people pleasers, if you're highly warm, you are so focused on being liked that you struggle to get things done. So my highly warm folks, they so want people to like them that people don't take them seriously. So they get interrupted more often. People forget having met them. People dismiss them more. They tend to sacrifice their own sanity and boundaries for other people. That simply is caused by that imbalance. And so the goal is, if we can hit the sweet spot of the balance of both warmth and competence, we are able to be both trusted and taken seriously. That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, but this is like the magic. This is the secret sauce. So if we can, I'm just, the wheels are turning and clicking here. So what's fascinating too is you understand the science of people so well that it can be intimidating to be around you, because I'm constantly thinking, are my hand gestures wrong? Is she going to think that I'm, like, what is she seeing? What am I doing right? And what am I doing wrong? Full disclosure, I just got out of a team meeting not too long ago, just minutes before this interview. And I'm thinking to myself, I could have used some more warmth. Like, we've got a lot going on. There's some big deadlines. There's some big initiatives. And I know for a fact that I have a desire to dial that up. So maybe we can double click on that in a second.
That is our weakness. So especially women who are trying to get things done because we have big goals and we are relentless in our pursuit of those goals, which has made it successful, we will sacrifice warmth first. That is the first thing to go. And so the problem is the more we sacrifice that warmth, the more we're getting things done, but we're losing the collaboration and the openness. And so this isn't necessarily about Well, it is about trying to make sure, yes, I want you to get things done, but you have to have just enough warmth. It's like a lubricant, right? Like you got to have the warmth as a lubricant to get things to keep moving smoothly. And so I think that what you're picking up on is exactly the problem of very smart people. Is they go into a meeting and they want to hit the agenda and they want to get things done. And they end the meeting and they go, I hope everyone's okay.
That's me. Oh, shit.
Are people mad? Here's another piece of science I just want to share with you, because for my awkward people listening, this is really important. When you get into that trap, and that was the trap that I was into, where we want to get things done. We want to make sure that we're hitting our agenda, high competence. And then we end a meeting, or we walk out of an interview, or walk out of a negotiation. We go, did I say something wrong? Are they okay? Did they like me? Should I have asked about their kids? Right? Like we have all those questions after the fact. It might be because you saw a cue that your subconscious, your amygdala picked up on, and our amygdala is a cue reading super machine. Our amygdala is constantly scanning for cues of social rejection specifically. So we're looking for, is this person warm? Is this person competent? And then we're also looking for, are they on our side? And this research study blew my mind. When I read this study, it changed the way that I interact. Here's the study, very simple. Researchers found that if you walk into a room or hop on a video call and you spot a cue of social rejection, so a cue of social rejection could be an eye roll, it could be a scoff, it could even be a dismissive tone of voice, like, great idea again, right? Those are cues of social rejection. The moment our body spots a cue of social rejection, our field of vision increases. Literally, our pupil size changes so we can see more of our environment. And that is because our body knows, danger. What's my escape route? Is anyone else sending a cue of social rejection? And what should I do next?
Saber-toothed tiger.
Saber-toothed tiger. And what's the grass like? And is there a monkey? And is my kid okay? So what's happening is really highly competent folks, they're trying to hit with competence. And so they're hitting their agenda, but they might see a cue of social rejection or an exasperated sigh or burnout, signs of burnout. And if it's ignored, your body still felt it. And that creates these really negative loops, not just for them, but also for you. And that's why at the end of the day, we feel like we are so drained, we just need to lay in bed.
The word that keeps popping up for me as I'm listening to you is pace, and how pace plays into, if we feel that the clock is chasing us, where do we default? Not more warmth usually, right? So that's just like, have a little bit of a self-awareness, spoonful of self-awareness soup here for me. Okay, charisma. So this is, how we like our walking meetings. I was having a walking meeting with Liz Matthews, who has been on this podcast before. And we started talking about charisma. This was even we hadn't discussed cues or anything yet. And we've actually talked about this more than once. And she said, I just read a definition in a book and I'm trying to remember. And I said, me too. And it just so happens she had finished the book that I was reading. And it really doesn't matter which one it was, and it's a fiction title. But the definition was, charisma is charm that inspires devotion. And I underlined it the first time I read it, and I remembered kind of being stopped in my tracks. And so then we went on to realize, okay, we're reading the same book. We're talking about some of the characters in our lives. And one of the characters that I know you've done a deep dive into, who I've spent a lot of time with in the past, and that's Dwayne Johnson, and kind of watched him over the course of a pretty pivotal time in his career just escalate quicker than anyone I've ever seen. And that is the person I think of when I think of charisma. So let's just dissect DJ.
Okay. So what I love about it is you know him from a personal perspective. I only know him from a professional perspective, but we both have the same opinion. Key. That is key. He is the same, now that you've confirmed it, with you just hanging out and on a YouTube video or in an interview. So the very first thing I want to mention here is highly charismatic people are congruent. They don't turn it up or turn it on to be fake. They don't fake it till they make it. they find a way to hit their flavor of charisma that is sustainable and feels natural to them, so they can do it when they're in a one-on-one, when they're with their partner, when they're with their kid, and when they're on a stage. And that's critical. That's why I don't want, if you're an introvert, for you to fake be an extrovert. That is not the way that we're charismatic. It's not sustainable. That's the first thing. Is I think that, I don't know, I can't call him DJ. I don't know him. He's The Rock to me. You can call him DJ. I'm going to call him The Rock. Like, he has this effortless charisma, this effortless charm, because he doesn't have to try. He's found his sweet spot. Now let's analyze his cues. So for my YouTube channel, I was telling Amy Jo this for listeners, that I did a breakdown of The Rock for my YouTube channel of all of his cues. And Amy Jo was like, oh, I know him. And I nearly fell out of my beach chair. Like, I was like, what? Like, I was like, because what's critical is most people, when they think of warmth cues, they think of bubbly. Well, I can tell you The Rock is not bubbly, right?
Yeah.
The Rock he's not bubbly. He's quite serious, but you still find him trustworthy. And so that's another myth I want to break, is that to be warm, you don't have to show up to a meeting with a huge smile, hello, like a Disney princess, good morning. Like, you do not have to be a fake bubbly extrovert to be warm. Right. And just think of The Rock when you think of this. The Rock is still trustworthy. You still want to give him a big hug, yet he is not a bubbly, effervescent person. So warmth comes from specific cues that show engagement. It's not about bubbly, it's about engagement. So here's some of my favorite warmth cues that The Rock does all the time. And I break this down in the video, which I'm going to send you after this, Amy Jo. I don't even know if I sent it to you yet.
I think I did. Yeah, I did see it.
Okay, good. Okay, so here were some of my favorite warmth cues is when we tilt our head to the sides. So anyone who's listening, just for a second, just tilt your head to the side, right or left, so you can expose your ear. This is a universal listening cue. The reason for this is because when we are trying to hear something better, we literally want to expose our ear. Like, it's just a way that our bodies work. It seems subtle, but research has found that when we show a head tilt, when someone is telling us hard news, we literally look like we are more engaged. We also feel more engaged. So nonverbal cues create loops, not just for them, but also for you. So you'll notice if you watch interviews with The Rock, and I'm sure that he must have done this in person, when you're with him, it feels like he is deeply, deeply listening. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter who you are. You know, it could be, his driver or the president or whatever, treating everyone the same. You feel equally the most important person in the world when you are in his presence.
Yes. Okay. So how does he cultivate this? One is I've noticed he tends to do a slight head tilt when he's showing he's listening. Again, that makes the other person feel heard. It also makes you a better listener. Okay. Another one that I've noticed that he does is he will lean in to emphasize a point. He does this while he speaks as well as when he listens. By the way, we're talking about The Rock specifically, but this is most charismatic people. So there are 96 cues in cues, and they're very easily broken up because you can see the highly charismatic people, whether they're former wrestlers or presidents or TED speakers or business people, they're using the same cues. So whether it's The Rock or someone else, they all use these cues. The second one is leaning cue. So just try leaning in for me, just a couple of inches. Research has found that when we lean in, it activates a specific part of our brain that activates our motivation, which is so weird. So even just leaning in activates your brain differently. It makes you want to take action. Why? Think of the five senses. If you want to smell something better, hear something better, taste something, touch something, I forgot the last one, say something, you usually say something. Yeah, you usually lean in, right? If I want to taste something, I lean into it. If I want to hear you better, I lean into you. Mm-hmm. Our body knows that's a pre-action cue. So highly charismatic people show not only are they listening, they want to take action on what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So really good speakers, if you watch them, we coded 495 Shark Tank pitches for the book, where we analyzed thousands of hours of Shark Tank looking for patterns. And we noticed that the successful entrepreneurs did this. They're on their pitch, they're on their carpet, and they would get to the critical piece. It could be a piece of data. It could have been a competitive advantage. And they would lean in just slightly as if they were sharing a really good secret. And you could see the sharks would look up and raise their eyebrows or take notes. So a lean cue is another cue that you can show also to inspire warmth and engagement. These are just two small examples, but it's incredible. Once you see them, you will start noticing them on the most charismatic people you are around.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us.
Okay, so one of the things you said, and kind of thinking about, let's go back to this example. Yes, not everybody probably feels resonant or relatable with Dwayne Johnson, but I can say I think this is something he truly, without making it like a super focus, he's worked on over the years, right? Like he understands what works. Without maybe even realizing, but intellectual curiosity. Where does that bake in? Because there's not a know-it-allness, but there's a lot of confidence, as well as that humble and intellectual curiosity. So where's that in the formula?
This is critical because there are 96 cues. Some are going to feel terrible to you and some you're going to love. Okay. And that's the key. I think my guess is people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as well as people like a Bill Clinton or a Barack Obama or any of these, or Oprah Winfrey, intuitively or consciously, right? We don't know which one. They're trying on different cues and going, oof, doesn't feel like me, don't like it. Or they're trying on a cue and they're like, yeah, I can work with this. So really a specific example. And I think that this is exactly what highly charismatic people are. Learners. They are growth mindset people. They know they have good intention. They have confidence in their intention. They know they're smart. They know that they can show up. They know that they're there to help, which I think everyone who's listening to this podcast has the same good intention, right? So the key is, are you willing to experiment with the delivery of your ideas? If you know your ideas are good, can you tweak how you deliver them to make sure that they are being received? I think not charismatic people, or people who don't reach their full potential, often feel, I have a great idea, I'm going to deliver it any way I want. The idea will speak for itself. Nope.
Yeah.
It does not work. And and the example I give in the book is Jamie Siminoff, who was one of the most intriguing Shark Tank pitches I've ever seen. So Jamie Siminoff founded Ring, the doorbell company, which is literally on my front door. Jamie Siminoff went into Shark Tank and he pitched his company to this panel. And this is a great idea. It literally sold to Amazon for over $1 billion, like billion with a B. He went into the Shark Tank and they didn't want it. They were totally uninterested in his pitch, which tells you can have a great idea. Jamie Siminoff had a great idea. A few months later, Shaq invested in it, right? You know Shaq. And Richard Branson invested in it. And then Amazon bought it for $1 billion. What happened in the tank? He went in and he relied too much on the idea. He knew his idea was good, but he didn't tweak the delivery. And so he gave a pitch that lacked both warmth and competence. It lacked both those cues. And so because of it, he walked out of the tank without a deal. So I think that the key is that you have to be willing to try on cues to find the ones that work for you. That delivery is even just as important as your idea.
I think that is so key, because you cannot fake this, right? It will be even worse. And what you said about even intuitively, the most charismatic people, they are trying these on, and whether they realize it or not, and adjusting and shifting their little calculus of cues. Okay, so in your book, by the way,
love it. Love the example.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
I love all the it was such a fun thing because I got to do like really interesting people like Lance Armstrong and Mark Cuban and Britney Spears. I was like, this is fun. So I think I'm hoping that fun kind of shown through so people can sort of feel fun as they're reading it as well. So thank you.
Yes, fun and functional too. Like the tangible, tactical. Okay, so it's further in the book, but you're talking about, and it was a term I hadn't heard before, but when people are on their phone and they are basically ignoring you.
Fubbing.
Okay. All right. Well, this is one of my absolute pet peeves. And I'm also likely guilty of it every once in a while at the dinner table. However, in business meetings even, I was in one not too long ago in person, and this person, it's just the two of us. And we're in discussion and turnover. And I've had this happen a few times. And in one case, I just said, I'll wait. And right. And I learned that from a friend, Scott O'Neill, who his wife did it to him all the time. And he's like, oops. Okay. So it's just extremely rude. And that sends a signal that, hey, my time is more important than yours. I'm more important than you. But what are your thoughts on this? What are some of the responses that would be options?
Okay. Love it. So first, I like to think of everything as a prop. So let's get like really advanced on this. So, okay, first there's, of course, if you have a device of any kind, and that could be any kind, right? iPad, computer, or phone, and you are phubbing someone. So you are looking at the phone and denying them eye contact. There's something chemical that's happening. And this is a chemical denial. That's how I want you to think of it. It's not just, I'm checking my phone quickly. It is a chemical denial. What I mean by that is the moment that we make eye contact with someone, we produce oxytocin. Oxytocin does a lot of things in our body, but for our purposes, it's the critical chemical of connection. It's key to warmth. So if you want to build warmth, if you're like, I'm trying to get things done, the fastest, easiest, not even time taking up way to produce warmth is to just make eye contact as you are speaking. That is a way that you can add warmth and not add time. And that is because we're locking gaze, and this could be in a big room, this could be one-on-one, we are gifting oxytocin. And oxytocin is critical for memory. It's critical for social anxieties. So research even found that the more, when they give people nasal sprays of oxytocin, like they actually do this in the lab, they can, you suck in a big nasal spray of oxytocin. When you do that, it increases your social cognition. You're literally better at reading faces and decoding facial expressions. You have less social anxiety, so you have more confidence, and you also have better recall. So you remember what's being said. So if you're in a meeting and you got to get it done, you don't need to do all the small talk chit chat. No, that's actually not true warmth. What I want you to be doing is gifting oxytocin to each person in that room. So every time that you phub, you're not only giving them a chemical denial, you're not giving them the actual chemical they need, you're hurting yourself. You're reducing the chemical that's going to make that interaction better. So that's number one, is thinking that's a great way to add warmth. Number two, I love the tip of I'll wait. The other thing that you can do is you can use your phone as a prop. So I use all the props in my environment very purposefully. So for example, when I sit down at a meeting, I will say to someone, I'm going to put away my phone. Let's deep dive. Like I literally, I make a point of like, I'm putting it off to the side so we can deep dive. One, that encourages them to do the same. I've noticed that people will have it in front of them. And then when I take my phone and I like put it down all the way over the side table upside down, they will often take their phone and do the same. So it's a social cue of mirroring. And we talk about mirroring in the book as well. People typically like reciprocity. So if you do it, they will typically do it too. So putting up to the side. And then if you do want to check your phone, do it as a compliment. And the way that you do that is, oh, wait a minute, that's so good. I got to take notes. Hold on. Wait a minute. I got to take notes. Hold on. Wait, don't say anything else. Hold on. Oh, that's so good. And so I'm actually using it to take notes and compliment them. And I'm literally saying, hold on, I got to take notes. Again, that also encourages them to do the same. I do the same thing with my computer. When I'm in a team meeting, I will take my computer, and when everyone walks into the room, I push it over to the side so that I am fully fronting with each person. There's nothing blocking my body. And then when I want to take notes, I'll say, wait a minute, I got to write this one down, guys. This is so good. I love it. Okay, keep going. I'm just going to take notes as we make sure I have it. So that way it's like I am purposefully using that as a prop. And so I would use them as a prop. The other thing little tip here is overhead gazers. So you might have a phubber, that's someone who looks at a phone. You might have an overhead gazer. You and I talked about this.
We did.
Before, we don't do that to each other, thank goodness. We love the oxytocin, but we've been in interactions where someone's looking over your head. Okay, so what do you do if this happens? If you're with someone and they're looking over your head at a restaurant, or they're looking over your head at a networking party, every time they look, look where they look. So if they're looking over your left shoulder, you turn around and look behind your left shoulder as if to say, and you could literally say, oh, is someone there? Oh, do you see someone good? And every time they do it, you turn around, because then they'll realize, oh, I'm distracting us from the conversation, and they will slowly stop doing it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I can think of a few situations where that tends to be the thing, especially if you're at a restaurant or at Soho House or somewhere where that front door, you never know who's going to come in, and you want to keep your eye like, it's just silly. Okay, so that's great. Let's shift a bit and talk through what's one thing you find yourself learning over and over, Vanessa.
Oh, you know this one because I was asking your help on it. Is I say yes to too many things. And that is because I actually lean a little higher on the competent side, which is why I tend to give examples in there. So it's not necessarily people pleasing. It's what I call, I learned this from my friend and author, Melody Wilding, opportunity FOMO. So I have very, very bad, I suffer from opportunity FOMO. Mm-hmm. Opportunity FOMO is when everything feels like it could be your next big break. And as an entrepreneur, we tend to feel like we can't miss an opportunity. Everything could be our next big break. We're supposed to be saying yes to everything, and we have to experiment and try it, and you never know what's going to hit. And so I've been running my business for 17 years. Oof, aging myself. Started my business 17 years ago. Crazy. And in the beginning, it was like, say yes to everything. And unfortunately, once my business got successful, I never dropped opportunity FOMO. So because it was sort of a slow grow, we did have 2 tipping points in our business. So we went from being unsuccessful to successful almost overnight, twice. Like, we hit next levels. I didn't have a chance to recalibrate my opportunity FOMO. So I went from not being able to pay the bills, worrying I'm not going to make payroll, to we got to hire 5 people. And so in that transition, I never learned, I think we have enough opportunities. I don't think I need to say yes to more.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of come to a head over the last few years, where I'm like, I have to start saying no, because I am not leveraging the opportunities I have because I'm saying yes to too many new ones.
Okay, so love this. And I do want to talk about the year of no, because we met in also October of last year, and November was coming in, and I was like, I'm going to start with the month of November. And then my son Lincoln said, yes, Vember. Yes, Vember. And I'm like, you're great point. Okay, so this all kind of came to a head, right? When you were designing your maternity leave. And then, not to skip too much forward and share your story, but what I loved was you then became self-aware that you created the situation you were in, and it was full responsibility, but it wasn't a situation that you loved. So this is such a great example and so relatable, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So after my book Captivate came out, so my very first book with Penguin Random House came out in 2017, then I got pregnant, and I figured, great, like, I'm going to prepare for maternity leave, and I'm going to have all this time that I'm going to take for myself, and I'm going to hire the right people. But the truth is I was actually not setting myself up for success, because I was still making it so that I was the bottleneck of the business. Like, I was still the bottleneck of the business, and I wasn't willing to face that. So sure enough, I give birth, and 11 days later, we have a customer service crisis, and I am back to work 8 to 10 hours a day, trying to breastfeed, crying hysterically all the time. And I was so angry. I was so angry at my business. And then I realized after a couple of weeks where I was like fully back. I mean, I had 11 days of maternity leave, barely. I never got to go back. I mean, I got to go back on maternity leave. It was just back to the races. I realized that actually I shouldn't be angry at my business. I should be angry at myself, because I was the one who set up the systems where I was the bottleneck, and there was no one else who could have fixed it because I set it up that way. That was a very, very sobering realization. And when I got pregnant again, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again. And so I was starting to think about how I wanted to prepare for my next maternity leave. And then I had a miscarriage. And that was another moment where I was like, I need to really stop. I need to really take stock of my priorities because I don't know how to say no. I don't know how to set up a business where I'm not the bottleneck. I can't wean myself off of opportunities. Like I say yes to everything, even if I don't want to. And so I decided to start a year of no in August of 2021. So it's now February of 2022. So I am still in the year of no. And that is because in August, I realized if I don't start saying no, I'm never going to get a maternity leave whenever I do get pregnant. It's not going to happen. And second, if I don't say no, I'm not going to be able to leverage the opportunities I have. In August 2021, we were just finishing editing Cues. I knew that Cues was going to come out in March. And I was like, I'm not going to have time to launch this book. And so I made a list of the things I had already committed to, Cues launch being one of them. And then I made a list of everything that I wasn't committed to and everything that I couldn't do. And the answer was, I'm going to say no to everything else. And that is painful. Like the opportunities that I have said no to in the last 6 months are terrifying, but also freeing. And so now I am so much more free to actually enjoy this launch and do as much as I can because I don't have all these backed up opportunities that I had said yes to that I'm overloaded with. That was a very fast version of the story. So I'm happy to dive into any part of it if you like.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of people that want that to be the next book, me included. But just what's interesting is, we have the year of yes. Was that Shonda Rhimes? We have a lot of times it comes back to why not now stop something? Why not now say no? Why not? It doesn't always mean it has to be additive. It can be additive by saying no. So we had talked about pace and how you and I are similar, that it's usually 100 miles an hour or it's 0. But there's very rarely anything in between.
You and I are the same this way. It's like in my business, I know how to either sprint or lay down. Like I don't know how to walk or jog.
Right. And I think, that's not a badge to wear with pride. It's something that, you can kick some goals when you do that, but you also end up having to forfeit things because you can't keep up that stamina. So do you find that that's shifted? Have you seen your pace adjust at all?
Yes. So one thing I noticed as I've been tracking is, so I started this first week of no on a very specific date in August, and I did not feel the effects, the relief of that no for 7 weeks. Now that's interesting because I thought the moment I started saying no, I'll be free. That's because I had so many things that I was in the middle of that I had to keep wrapping up and finishing up, that it wasn't until 7 weeks later where I went, oh, I have an afternoon for deep work. Like it took 7 weeks of wrapping up and untangling. And so I think that the pace issue is interesting because it's not like a treadmill. I think I used to think the metaphor I used in my head was it was like a treadmill that I could press pause at any time if I want to, right? The lie that I told myself, and I run my business with my husband, the lie that I would tell myself and my husband was, oh, I could press pause whenever I need. If I'm feeling burnt out or if I'm feeling tired, I'll just press pause. So what would happen is I would get burnt out where I would be out of breath and I would be hitting the stop button on the treadmill and nothing stopped. And then I got into really bad burnout. And so I think that when we think about pace, we have to remember that pausing is not an option, really. You have to prepare for your slowdown periods and prepare for your fast periods. And in my work, it's 7 weeks of prep. Mm-hmm. So if I have a big something coming, I better be ready I better take me 7 weeks to get ready for that push, that sprint. Or if I want to take a pause, I better do it really early because I'm not going to make it for 7 weeks.
So this is so good. A lot of people are probably wondering right now, okay, so she's launching a book. She just wrote a book. What is your filter for saying no? Because, this is a baby that's coming one way or another, this book, Cues. So how do you decide personally and professionally with opportunities?
Yep. So it's a really good question. That actually, the rules of the year of no were really hard. I think that like, if you're thinking about doing a week of no, like if you're feeling a little burnt out, a week of no could even help you, right? Like so one of my rules was no punting. So this is another thing that way that we self-deceive is we hear an opportunity and we say, not now, but maybe later. So we punt it, right? We're like,
Yes.
kick it down the line. Like we think it's a no by saying, check back with me in a month. That's not a no, friend. That's a punt.
Mhm.
And so what I had done in the past, which I did to myself in maternity leave, is I punted. So I said, I'm going to be on maternity leave. I'll get back to you in 3 months. Well, that was a nightmare because then when I got back, there was a whole bunch of stuff waiting for me. And I was already backed up from what I had. So punting, no punting.
Pile of procrastination.
A big pile of procrastination, a big pile of punted balls, just waiting to be picked up. And at that point, by the way, they're screaming.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. You said.
If you punted a project, they're like, it's my turn. It's my turn. You told me to come back 6 weeks later, and then you're really beholden. So one of my rules was no punting. Like I couldn't say to someone, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm in my book launch time right now, but get back to me next summer.
So instead you say,
no, thank you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, but I just have to decline right now. That's it.
Great.
That's it. So no punting and very grateful gratitude no's, right? Mm-hmm. So no punting. That was the first one because that just comes to, that's what I learned in my maternity leave. The second thing is a really strong filter for yeses or nos. And so, for example, I couldn't say, a rule couldn't be, if this sells books, I'll do it. Because you and I both know that we could make a logical argument that anything could sell a book, right? Mm-hmm. So the rule was, if there is a direct book order or a direct push to people to buy the book, I can say yes. So it was only in direct service of selling the book. That rule actually helped a lot because you get a lot of these fuzzy opportunities. Mm-hmm. Hey, we love, like one of the opportunities I said no to was a television network wanted to pitch a pilot based on my work. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That came like September 6th. And I was like, come on, because I was 6 weeks into my year of no. And this huge opportunity hits my inbox. And I was like, oh, and my husband's like, you can't do it.
Can you punt to the next year when the year of no is over?
No punting.
That's a great example because that's a pretty big shiny object.
But it wouldn't directly sell books. It wouldn't directly sell books, right? If he had said, I want you to come on our live segment and pitch your book, sure. But we're pitching a show that's about your work.
It could possibly someday, one day, help sell a book down the road. Okay, so question personally. Let's say, year of no in your personal life and social life. Talk to me about that. How does that sound?
So here was my rule for my social personal life. One thing I realized when I was so burnt out and at the very bottom of my barrel in August was I couldn't remember the last time I laughed. Like I couldn't remember the last time I had fun. Actually, the only laughing I was having was because my daughter is hilarious. So I have a 3.5-year-old toddler at the time, had just turned 3. That was the only joy that I was having. I had sacrificed friend dinners, fun dinners, date nights, and also, of course, COVID. So it was like doubled up, no fun. And so my only rule for social was, if it sounds fun, I will do it. Because that's the only thing I need more of. If it's not fun, and this is the really hard one, if it sounds like obligation, if I use the word should, I should go to that bridal shower. Nope. If there was a should or an obligation or any sense in my body, and this was a hard one, of dread, like that feeling you have when you look at it on your calendar and it's like, ugh, nope, that's a no. That's a hard no. And so when we met and it was like, we should go to brunch, we should go on double date. I'm like, that sounds like so much fun. When can we do it? Can we do it sooner? The answer is yes. We were like, let's go to San Diego, sit on the beach, drink cocktails, and talk about our businesses. I was like, that sounds like fun. Yes.
And can we just add to that too, by the way, because I think this is really important. We both had situations with friends where we talked about, let's go away to XYZ, and promises were made for, for having these trips, and then it didn't ever happen because nobody would follow through, which is relevant because that's probably a case of saying yes to a lot of things that we didn't want to say yes to, but they were filling the calendar, so we could not find the time or justify fun.
That is exactly right. Because in the past, I had tried to do all these trips and either I had canceled or they had canceled because I had too many yeses. Fun always went last.
Yeah.
And so, that's exactly. And so we were able to do it. I guarantee you that if I hadn't had August, September, October, and November of no's, there's no way I could have made that trip in December with you. No way. It took me 4 months of no to get 3 days of yes with you. And thank goodness, because that was like the best sort of reset. I felt really clear going in 2022. I looked forward to it. It gifted me before we even got to San Diego, because every time I looked at my calendar, I was like, I'm doing that and I can do that. And I have time to do that. And that was like a reward a little bit.
Yep. And it was like triple dipping, right? It was personal, it was friend, and we were talking business because it's not really business, but like just, we love what we do.
So
our cocktails were business expenses. I don't know what you're talking about. Those are business expenses.
Well, and so the reality, people hear this and it may not be news in terms of, this is what might need to happen, but how do you execute it? What I've found is I almost have to get ruthless and feisty about my priorities. And I almost need a little bit of edge about guarding that calendar, or else I will get really edgy when XYZ comes and I have to do something I said I would do. And so it's like, if you're listening and you're having trouble with this, almost get feisty. It's like, imagine yourself guarding that calendar as if you are, Rocky. Because that might be the edge you need. And sometimes it's people, places, things, what can go.
I love the idea of like having a little being feisty about it, like having your edge. It's a great way to think about it. Another kind of thing you can do is you can have someone who's like your guard for you. So like my assistant knew all about this. Like she was like on board with me. And so she says no for me a lot. Like she just stopped sending me stuff. Like she just like didn't even let me say no. Like she would just say no to the opportunity. So like I don't even see probably 30% of the opportunities anymore that I used to see, because she would send them to me, to see if I wanted to do it. So 30% are now taken away by my assistant. If you don't have an assistant, ask a partner, ask a friend of like, can you run ideas by them where they can tell you, should I do this?
Yeah.
So is there someone in your life where you can be like, okay, here's the opportunity. And I do this with my husband all the time where I'm like, okay, here's the opportunity. Does that count? Is that going to directly sell books? And he'll be like, no. Or yeah, you know what? I think that they're going to directly sell books, or let's negotiate for them to buy books. Right. So have that another person, if that isn't you, who can be like your check.
I love it. Okay. Oh, I could talk to you for another hour. This is so good. This is so good. Let's do this again.
Maybe at the end of the year of no, maybe by then I'll have like discovered a new inner peace or something. But
oh yeah, you'll have all these learnings and takeaways and bring it. We'll take that gladly. Thank you for sharing your time and wisdom. You're such a pro. Everyone, Cues, it really, what a way to amplify your life, personally, professionally. Charisma is a thing. It is like a halo, right? It's this fog, and it's amazing to know that you can create that. And thank you for the work you're doing. And I appreciate you, Vanessa.
Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful that you came into my life this year, and you kept me accountable. And thank you so much for letting me talk about this. I hope if anyone's listening and there was something that like felt a little exciting to you, like follow that excitement. Like that's like something's working and something's right. So I'm happy to support, and I'll try to keep sharing too.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?